and welcome to this lesson on designing videos, an introduction to audio, screen, and lecture capture. When designing instructional content for the web, you'll likely need to use video as one of the main mediums for sharing curriculum, so creating e-lectures is a common task. E-lectures are an effective way to deliver instructional video of a teacher or trainer. In this lesson, we'll introduce you to some of the common processes for creating e-lectures efficiently. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe production processes for various ways of creating e-lectures, including screen capture, image narration, and video capture, and to apply strategies for elements of e-lecture production, including planning, LMS integration, PowerPoint design, recording, and so on. This lesson has 3 parts: e-lecture basics, tips and strategies, and production options. To start, we'll discuss the basic uses and basic criteria for good e-lectures. An obvious question is, what is an e-lecture? Although they can look quite different, e-lectures are online videos that support learning, or more specifically, the acquisition of concepts, skills, and values. They often mimic classroom lectures, for example with the use of visualization tools like PowerPoint and with a teacher or speaker talking. What's important to note is that they're used to supplement face-to-face training or replace it completely when the delivery method is distributed from a distance. As we learned in past sessions about effective lesson planning, good e-lectures should have several pedagogical elements that you would incorporate in regular lessons, including clear objectives, strategies to engage the audience, activities that support participatory learning, and assessment tools to measure what the audience learns. But beside these lesson elements, e-lectures are delivered online or from a distance where learners can easily feel disengaged and isolated. Good e-lectures should therefore take care to connect learners with the content, the teacher, and other learners. By helping learners feel connected, designers build social presence to help their audience learn in a community rather than as an isolated person. As well, good e-lectures often require much more technology than regular lessons, so using media effectively is another important consideration. Because of these extra considerations, e-lectures have drawbacks and challenges that designers should be aware of. The first challenge relates to the disengagement learners feel learning on their own. It's easy to fall into the talking head style of instruction, where there are few activities or elements to engage learners. As designers, we can use several strategies to combat learner disengagement, including humor, questions, activities, stories, visuals, and instructor personalization. The second challenge of e-lectures relates to the amount of technology they require related to creating presentations, producing videos, and using online tools like learning management systems. As designers, we therefore need to invest adequate time in learning these technologies so our products look professional and don't needlessly inhibit learning. Lastly, the third challenge relates to the amount of time it takes to develop, produce, and reproduce e-lectures. In addition to time spent with regular curriculum development, planning and producing video can take a lot of time. Depending on the amount of media and editing involved, you should expect to spend between 5 and 20 times the duration of your final video when producing it. That means that a 10-minute e-lecture can take between 50 and 200 minutes to record and produce. This is just a gross estimate, but it helps to know that video can take a long time when scheduling your design projects. As an instructional designer, you can incorporate e-lectures into your training or educational program in several different ways. If your delivery method is only online, e-lectures can help to replace classroom-based lectures and support learners in self-directed and distance training. E-lectures can also supplement face-to-face instructional programs by allowing instructors to focus on activities and just-in-time teaching in the instructional room. For example, a trainer may require learners to watch e-lectures prior to coming to class so they can use classroom time for activities to help learners practice concepts and skills, and to provide just-in-time training to answer questions and fix misunderstandings. This strategy is called flipped instruction. Normally, the amount of time in a face-to-face class is dominated by teacher-centered direct instruction. With flipped instruction, however, by moving the direct instruction into online e-lectures that must be watched prior to teaching, the instructor can then use the time to answer questions from the e-lectures and create opportunities for participatory practice. Now that we know some basics of how e-lectures are used in training and education, we're going to look closer at tips and strategies for their production. When planning the production of e-lectures, you need to think about 3 major stages. Before recording, you need to create your lesson, the visuals to support it, and the script for what you want to say. As we've discussed in past lessons, PowerPoint is a common tool for creating visuals, so much of this stage may be spent designing your presentation. After planning, you can start to record your e-lecture. This usually includes preparing a location and then carefully following your script. And lastly, once all your recording is complete, you edit and publish your final video. We're now going to look more carefully at strategies and tips for each of these stages. In addition to the pedagogical elements previously discussed in our prior session about lesson planning, when planning your e-lecture, you should make sure to script carefully. I find that scripting is important for me, but it does take away from the spontaneousness and personalization of my lectures. So if you're talented at ad-libbing, you may prefer working from a less detailed script. Scripting does, however, allow you to easily print the script later for learners with hearing impairments or learners who want detailed study notes. Second, when planning your e-lecture, you need to include important resources that will help your learners better engage with the content in your lesson. These might include worksheets, handouts, or other learning objects. And third, you should also plan to reference tools from your learning management system that will support your learning activities and assessments. For example, if using Moodle, you might plan to mention quizzes, Dropboxes, forums, wikis, and so on in your e-lectures. Each of these tasks requires some forward thinking and planning, so be prepared to spend a bit of time in the planning stage. If you're creating many e-lectures for the same project, there are several tricks that will help you save time and help your videos look more consistent. First, try to pre-plan all your lectures as much as possible so you can include references to past and future lessons and reduce repetition. Second, you can make a PowerPoint template from pre-titled slides and designs. For example, you can set up a template for colors, fonts, and footers, as well as slides for outcomes, purpose statements, summaries, and so on, so you don't have to remake them each time. Third, you need to be careful with your file names and locations to keep everything well organized. For example, as you can see here, I name my folders and PowerPoint files consistently with numbers and topics so I don't lose files and make needless mistakes. You'll want to think about what system works for you, but you will need a system if you start mass-producing e-lectures. Regarding design tips for using PowerPoint, you should try to make your PowerPoints consistent with each other, as well as other instructional products you're creating like handouts and other learning objects. As discussed in past lessons, this includes making several design decisions like choosing complementary colors and fonts. There are tools online that can help you choose complementary colors and fonts, for example if you Google the phrases color palettes or font combinations. After selecting your colors and fonts, you can then customize your PowerPoints using the Slide Master tool. What's most important when choosing colors and fonts is to maximize readability. This means choosing highly contrasting colors for text and backgrounds. Regarding tips about laying out your PowerPoint slides for e-lectures, there are a few important considerations. First, if you plan to use picture-in-picture by having a smaller layer of video from your webcam or video camera on top of your slide, you should leave a space free on your slide that gives room for the dimensions of your video. For example, if I had widescreen video on this slide, I would place it where the red box is in the bottom right, which would overlap with my text and look unprofessional. Another important consideration is to have fewer words on your slides. Remember that your audience may be watching your lesson on smaller screens or resolutions, so few words with large fonts is more readable. Once your PowerPoint and script is ready to record, there's a few important considerations to make sure you capture the best recording you can. First, when choosing and setting up the recording room, make sure that it's relatively soundproof or noise-free, and that there are few visual distractions behind you if you're capturing video. You also want to make sure there's no interruptions, so you may want to inform those you live with that you're recording so they know not to interrupt you, and also to set your phone on silent. Second, to capture good audio, make sure to speak loudly and audibly towards the microphone. Also, you'll want to make note of your microphone levels and your distance to the microphone so you can repeat these and standardize your audio levels between recording sessions. Lastly, when speaking, try to vary your tone and maintain a comfortable pace. Recording yourself takes practice and some getting used to, but if you're like me, you won't be perfect, but you will improve over time. The third recording tip is very important if you want to make editing out your mistakes much easier. When recording, be sure to pause when speaking between slides for several seconds and to pause naturally between sentences for a moment as well. This allows you to make edits much more naturally and easily with your video production software. When editing, for example, you'll find silent moments in your waveform that you can slice and splice together with other silent moments, making it easy to edit and much more natural sounding when you remove mistakes. In addition to audio considerations, if you're recording video, you'll also need to consider room lighting. At a minimum, you'll want to have good lighting from the front with no direct light hitting the camera from behind you to minimize shadows on your face. Ideally, you'll want to be evenly surrounded by indirect and diffuse light. If you're planning for a higher production value in your recording, you might consider 3-point lighting, which includes front lighting as well as lighting from the rear to separate you and your subject from the background. If you're recording video, you'll also want to consider how you or your subject is framed in the shot. If you're recording basic lecturing, you might use a mid shot or a head shot. A mid shot is from your waist or stomach up, leaving a few inches of space or headroom above you in the frame. A head shot is from your neck or shoulders up. If you're demonstrating actions, you may want to frame yourself in a wide shot as well, which shows your whole body. Although it takes a bit of time to rearrange your equipment and edit together shots, you can vary your shots to promote engagement. As well, if you need to record yourself drawing, writing equations, or using equipment, you can frame your camera around whiteboards, paper, your hands, and so on. Lastly, if you recall prior lessons about important technologies for designers, there's a few tools that you may want to use if you work often with video in instructional design. The first is a good quality microphone. Good audio is very important for e-lectures, and using your computer's microphone will not give you the best quality recordings. If you'd like to practice using a nicer microphone, you can borrow Zoom H2s and Zoom H2Ns from the Faculty of Education at UVic. You can also try using headsets if you're just recording your voice. I find it useful to record several practice takes before recording for real to make sure my audio quality is the best it can be. The second tool which I've found helpful for making much fewer mistakes when lecturing with video is a teleprompter app. Teleprompters allow a person to read a script while it looks like they're looking into a camera. News anchors have always used these, but now smartphones and tablets have apps you can download which do the same thing. And lastly, if you want higher quality video in your e-lectures, you'll need an HD video capture device. Again, relatively new mobile devices are quite good for lecture capture, so if you'd like to have higher resolution video than your computer's webcam, you may want to experiment with your smartphone or something else easily available. Now that we've discussed e-lecture basics as well as production tips and strategies, we're going to briefly discuss different options you can use to create e-lectures. Remember that you can produce e-lectures in many different video editing programs, but for our class we'll be using Camtasia. Video editing software shares several common features. For example, a timeline where you can add clips and media, tracks in the timeline where you layer your media, and at least one viewer where you can see your video in the real time. Camtasia does a good job of video production specifically for education, but it's also a good introductory program for those new to video editing. There are 3 different ways you can create e-lectures that we'll focus on in this course. You can record your screen while you speak into your microphone. You can record just your voice and later import visuals like PowerPoint slides into your project. Or you can record video using an HD device and later import your visuals into your project. You'll want to download the worksheet describing these steps in detail from the course website. The screen recording process will create an e-lecture that has a real-time recording of your PowerPoint presentation with audio of your voice, video from your computer screen, and a second optional video layer from your webcam. You'll want to use this process if recording screen animations is necessary, but video of the lecture is less important. For example, you may want to use your mouse pointer, show important PowerPoint animations, or illustrate use of a computer program. This is the easiest process for producing quick recordings where careful scripting and future re-editing is less necessary. The voice recording process will create an e-lecture that has static images of your PowerPoint slides with audio of your voice and no video from your webcam or external device. Use this process if screen animations are unnecessary and video isn't important. This is the easiest process to produce e-lectures on a larger scale that are easy to re-edit and reuse. Most of my e-lectures in this course, including this one, is an example of this process. Lastly, the video recording process will create the highest quality e-lectures that require video of the lecturer. This is the most complex production process if PowerPoint is required, but you can create various effects impossible with other processes, like picture-in-picture PowerPoint over video, full-screen video, and so on. Now that you've had an introduction to e-lecture strategies, your task is to begin creating your e-lecture lesson on your chosen learning theory or design framework. You'll need to select which production method is most suitable for your topic, teaching goals, and lesson plan. To start, however, you should install Camtasia and begin working through the steps in this week's handout using YouTube's Camtasia tutorials when needed. You'll find links to the handout and tutorials in the course website. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.